if they get up on you and kill the clock, it's over. I spend a lot of time in the off season because a lot of assistant coaches in the league that I know are driving around recruiting. They get bored and they want to call and talk and so forth. And that was one of the quotes from earlier this summer, talking about how you can get into trouble with Georgia. Like when you're playing Georgia, if they get up on you, they're going to knock out the clock. This is a story that one of the stories, what we're hearing over on Dawg Post. If you are not on our newsletter, the link is right down below. You need to make sure that you're clicking on it because it doesn't cost anything to click on it. It doesn't to sign up for it, and it'll just come to your email, about 5 times a week. So make sure you're taking advantage of that right now. If Georgia can get up on you and kill the clock, it's over. And I went back and looked through a lot of the information, the factual stuff over time. 90% of the time, so 99 times out of 110, Georgia's taken a lead in the fourth quarter. So we're only working with these other, handful of games that are either tied or where they're leading. If you have a lead against Georgia in the fourth quarter, you are more likely to lose than win. 12 times Georgia has come back while trailing in the fourth quarter to win the game. Fourth quarter when they're trailing or tied. 11 times someone's come back on them. So or not come back on them. 11 times they've just lost in the fourth quarter when they didn't have the lead. And those games were North Carolina. The 12 comebacks are Carolina in 16, Missouri in 16, Kentucky in 16, Auburn in 16, and TCU in 16. By the way, the 4 losses were, 2016 was a wild season at Georgia. 2017 Notre Dame, 2017 Oklahoma, 2020 Cincinnati, 2021 national championship game against Alabama. Alabama had the lead going into the fourth quarter of that game. Missouri in 22 Ohio State, and then 23 Auburn. I think some people would say, well, didn't they come back on South Carolina? They did come back on South Carolina. They had a 10-point deficit at the half, but by the fourth quarter, Georgia was up. It wasn't an insignificant. I think it was maybe they were up 10. Like they flipped the script on Carolina pretty quick. But that just goes to show you, like, first of all, to beat them, you just straight up have to be the better team. Only one time in Kirby's 16 losses were they just like a really big favorite and lost. And that was a South Carolina game in 19. And even in that game, Georgia forced overtime and lost it there with the Rodrigo kick that missed. That was a once in a decade game. It was a very strange game, and South Carolina won it. I have to say, the amount of times Georgia's played a quote strange game against South Carolina is not abnormal. That's not uncommon. And you think about the 2009 game, the 2011 game, the 2016 game was a hurricane game. It was on Sunday. It's the only time Georgia, I think, in history has ever played on Sunday in the regular season. The 19 game was strange. Didn't make any sense at all. I thought the 20 game was strange just because of the ambiance at the stadium. I've never seen Williams-Brice that quiet. But anyway, if you want to beat Georgia, it helps having a better team than them. That's definitely what happened with LSU in 2019, with LSU in 2018. It helps if you're, Alabama. I think that's of Kirby's losses, a third of them are to Nick Saban. So what does that mean moving forward? I don't know. But everybody now around the league is kind of the view that this is Georgia's to lose. They're in the pole position now. Kirby, one thing you hear a lot from people, and again, make sure you're signing up for the newsletter. It's right down below and it's free. One thing that you hear a lot from people that are, they don't care. They're just saying what their view is that it's impressive that Kirby built Georgia to what it is now, while Nick was in the league. And I think that's probably going to be one of the things that smart people talk about, but maybe it's not mentioned enough. Nick Saban's time in the SEC period. Like he won the league in 2001, taking Tennessee out, a team that would have played for the national championship, and they beat Tennessee's brains in. I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure that they beat them in a way that it was surprising to me. I'll put it to you that way. But that season, the obviously the 2003 national championship against. They beat Oklahoma. I mean, they smoked them. Nick did a great job. I mean, that, by the way, that was the second time they played Tennessee that year. They lost the first time in Knoxville, but they beat Tennessee by 11 at the Dome, and they just absolutely torched Illinois. They beat them by 13, almost scoring 50 points. I mean, it took Nick a little bit of time, and they'd have played for the SEC championship in 2002, but they had the miracle from Arkansas in Little Rock, and they won it in 2003 and 2004. That LSU team was a 9-4 team, I feel like, and they were 9-3. Sorry, they lost to Auburn. They got smoked by Georgia. Lost to Auburn by a point. They got smoked by Georgia. And then they had a really, I have to say, odd loss to Arkansas to Iowa at the end of that year. But anyway, what he did, Nick, should not be undersold. 2 SEC championships and a national championship at LSU, multiple SEC championships at Alabama, and all this was happening while Kirby, while this was happening, this is a built Alabama program. Kirby's trying to build Georgia up to where, it is today, and which is, the best college football program in the country. I don't think there's really much confusion about there. There could be some debate, but there's no legitimate argument that someone would be better than Georgia. The same, maybe, better. No, I don't think so. That's kind of asking too much. Hey, speaking of not asking too much, SoPoly 478-374-6398 down there in Dodge County. This is EcoPoly. So EcoPoly's changed their name. They're SoPoly now. Why? Well, it's a long story. The point is the same exact product. It's just so good. It's everywhere around the South. You can pick it up anywhere. As you can see, the dealer locator, when you go to SoPoly.com, the dealer locator is right there, right next to the phone number. And you can click that and find someone close to you in Atlanta or Augusta or Birmingham or wherever. 478-374-6398. It's surprising to me how many people in the Birmingham market watch this podcast or show or whatever they call these things these days. But I think that, and we know these things because of data. We can see it straight from our friends at Google. I think when you talk about when they get up on you and kill the clock, I mean, I was watching Georgia, Florida in 2023 earlier today, and Florida made one mistake and the game was over. Like, Florida had a 7-0 lead, and it just melted away as soon as Georgia got up. I think it almost felt like as soon as they got up 10-7, the game was over. I wouldn't go that far, but when it was 10-7 turned into 26-7 quick. Like, in a matter of, probably on the field, like 30 minutes. But in game time, not long. 7 minutes? It wasn't long at all. But that's what they do to you. And then they just, the second half, they run the play clock. They run the ball. And they can run the ball. That's the thing about, like a Georgia 13-point lead. You're in real trouble in the second half if they're up 13 on you. Because they can still score. Like that's the problem, is they can still score on you. And you got to stop them from scoring, and then you got to score on them, which is certainly a very difficult and challenging thing to do. But, in the league, there is still a lot of admiration for what Kirby's built. I do wonder, I don't think Alabama's going anywhere. We'll see what happens with LSU this fall. There's a lot of we don't know a lot about this season coming up. I mean, I feel like in the past there's been a lot of certainty about certain places now. There's been a lot of change in the league. I mean, specifically when the best program in the last 15 years has a change like that. Now everybody's trying to settle in. I mean, Florida looks like it's teetering. You've got Texas and Oklahoma coming in. There's a lot of, I'm not sure what to make of this right now. But if you don't want to lose to Georgia, the biggest thing is getting a lead, holding a lead, and then frankly, I mean, 11 of the 16 losses that Georgia's had have been with the other team leading coming into the fourth quarter. So that's your best chance. But statistically speaking, you still are not. You still could lose. That's the problem. I mean, 12 to 11 of when Georgia's when Georgia can flip the script on you too. So that's the thing. They've trailed in those 23 situations going into the fourth quarter, and they pulled out 12 of those wins. That's a lot. Thanks for watching.